The sky looked clear over the small town of Westfield. It was a quiet place with farms, kids playing in open fields, and neighbors who knew each other by name. But everything changed one sunny afternoon when a strange golden cloud rolled in from the north. No one knew where it came from. At first, people thought it was just pollen from a nearby forest. It floated gently in the air, sparkling in the sunlight. But within minutes, people started sneezing. Not normal sneezes, these were strong, loud, and endless. The kind that shook windows, knocked over shelves, and left people gasping for breath. Old Mr. Harvey sneezed so hard, he fell off his porch swing. A delivery driver crashed his truck into a lamppost after a sneezing fit. Kids ran home crying, noses red and eyes watery. Stores sold out of tissues in hours. People tied scarves around their faces and stayed indoors. Something wasn't right. A small farm just outside town. A woman named Marla watched the golden cloud from her barn. But Marla wasn't just a farmer. She was a retired Space Force captain who had seen strange things during her time in the galaxy. This pollen cloud, it wasn't natural. She turned on her old military radio and scanned the frequencies. Static, more static. Then a voice, attention, all outposts. Alien ships spotted dropping biological clouds, classified as pollen bombs, unknown effect. Report all cases. Marla's eyes narrowed. She pulled a dusty box from her attic and opened it. Inside were old gear, a tactical suit, a plasma scanner, and a sealed communication device. She hadn't used them in years, but now it looked like she'd need them again. Back in the center of town, Dr. Lee was trying to help people at the clinic. He was a young scientist sent by the World Health Alliance to monitor strange weather patterns. This was way more than weather. People weren't just sneezing. Some had red rashes, others coughed up strange-colored mucus. But no one was dying. Not yet. He took samples of the pollen floating in the air. Under the microscope, it looked alive. Tiny spores wiggled and moved, like they were reacting to human breath. It wasn't just nature, it was a weapon. They're testing us, Dr. Lee said to himself. This is only the beginning. Far above Earth, in a hidden orbit, a small alien ship hovered silently. Inside, a creature with blue-gray skin and large silver eyes watched data appear on its screen. Every time a human sneezed, the ship recorded the force, direction, and biological response. The creature tapped a symbol on the screen. It meant phase 1 successful. The plan was simple. Release the pollen, observe. If humans couldn't fight something as soft as pollen, they would never be able to stop what came next. Meanwhile, Marla suited up. She wasn't going to wait around. She rode her old hoverbike to town and met with Dr. Lee. Together, they shared their findings and theories. We need to warn others, she said. This isn't just our town, it's happening everywhere. He nodded. We also need tissues. What tissues? He said seriously. They're the only thing people are asking for. Pharmacies, stores, online, they're all sold out. People are panicking. Marla blinked. Then we give them what they need. That night, she sent a signal to an old contact in space logistics. Within hours, huge cargo drops started arriving in the fields outside Westfield. Giant crates filled with tissues, soft, strong, and packed by the thousands. People cheered when they saw them. Some even cried tears of relief. Kids danced with tissue boxes, while parents handed them out like gold. Across the country, other towns heard about Westfield's tissue defense. They started doing the same. Tissue companies became heroes. Truck convoys delivered supplies to affected areas. Social media filled with photos of tissue towers and people wrapped in tissue suits. The aliens watched it all with confusion. Their advanced bioweapons were supposed to cause fear. Instead, humans responded with sneezes, laughter, and tissues. This was not the reaction they had expected. Back in the alien ship, the commander hissed, "They mock us, but they will see. Phase 2 will break them." On Earth, Marla and Dr. Lee were already preparing for the next step. They didn't know what was coming, but they knew one thing for sure: the aliens had picked the wrong planet. Because humans had faced worse. And if they had to fight with tissues, then so be it. The next morning, Westfield looked like a different place. Soft white tissues covered windows, doors, and even parked cars. Some people wore full suits made of layered tissues. It looked silly, but it worked. People could finally step outside without sneezing their lungs out. Marla stood on the town hall roof, watching the horizon. The golden cloud had spread farther overnight. It now reached the next town, and reports were coming in from cities on the other side of the country. Whatever the aliens had planned, it was no longer a small test. Dr. Lee arrived with new lab results. The pollen is changing, he said quickly. It's learning. Marla frowned. Learning, he nodded. Our bodies are fighting it. So now it's changing shape, mutating to stay effective. That means phase 2 is starting. Just then, a soft hum filled the sky. People looked up. 3 more alien ships hovered above the clouds, dropping glowing pods that burst mid-air. The pollen from these new bombs was thicker, darker, and mixed. With faint sparks of purple, the effect was immediate. People weren't just sneezing anymore, they were dizzy, confused, and unable to walk straight. Ambulances rushed to help. Parents grabbed their children and locked their homes. Marla ran back to her command center, which she had set up inside the old town library. Screens showed maps with red zones growing fast. They want to wear us down, she said. Little by little, but why pollen? Asked Dr. Lee. Why not lasers or missiles? Marla looked serious. Because they think it's clever. They want us to laugh at first, then suffer. But we're not going to give them the ending they want. Back in space, the alien commander studied human reactions. Even with stronger bombs, humans were fighting back in strange ways. One city had built a giant tissue launcher spraying rolls into crowds like water at a festival. Another town created pollen safe zones using indoor air purifiers. And more ships filled with tissues kept arriving from Earth's allies in orbit. The aliens were growing nervous. The commander turned to his advisor and spoke in their native clicks and tones. Increased strength, full effect. Now, within hours, new bombs dropped. This time, the pollen had scent-based chemicals that tricked the human brain. People began smelling flowers that weren't there. Some saw visions. A few wandered into the woods, chasing things that didn't exist. Panic spread again, but so did determination. Marla called for volunteers. We need scouts to move through the cloud and track the bomb sites. We have to find where they land and disable the core pods. 10 brave men and women stepped forward. Marla gave them old military gear, helmets, filters, thick boots, and clear masks. They looked like ghost hunters from an old movie. Don't breathe it in, don't follow anything you see. Trust each other, not your senses, Marla warned. The scouts moved through the heavy pollen, guided by radio. They used handheld scanners. From Dr. Lee's lab, the signals led them to a deep trench outside town, where black alien pods were buried beneath the soil. Each pod hummed quietly, releasing more spores. One scout touched the side of a pod, and it pulsed like a heartbeat. He jumped back. They're alive, he said through the radio. The team marked the location and returned to base. When Marla saw the data, her heart sank. They're growing. These bombs underground, they're not just attacking, they're planting something. Dr. Lee added, we don't just need to block the pollen, we need to kill the source. As night fell, Westfield's skies turned dark with alien clouds. The purple mist glowed faintly above the town. It looked like a dream, or maybe a warning. People stayed close to one another, sharing tissues, drinks, and stories. Marla gave a small speech outside the town hall. We didn't ask for this fight, she said. We're not warriors with guns or battleships, but we're human. We don't give up because our noses itch or our eyes watered. They thought this would break us. They thought we'd panic and hide. But look at us, we turned tissues into armor. People clapped, some laughed, others cried quietly. The next day, Marla sent a message to Earth's Global Council. We need more than tissues. We need counter weapons, something to stop the source underground. The council agreed. Specialists were being sent. Anti-pollen tech was being tested, and space defense units were gathering near Earth's orbit. On the alien ship, the commander paced in silence. The humans were not collapsing. They were adapting. Worse, they were fighting back with unitine humor. Prepare the final wave, the commander said. If this fails, we withdraw. Marla watched the skies again. She knew something bigger was coming, but so was Earth's answer. The morning air was thick with purple mist. It didn't look dangerous, but everyone in Westfield knew better now. People no longer laughed when they saw pollen. They wore masks, used special filters, and stayed close to safe zones marked with blue flags. Inside the old town library, now, the base of operations, Marla stood beside Dr. Lee, studying a 3D map of the alien pods. Red markers blinked in a wide circle around Westfield. They weren't random. They were forming a pattern, something that didn't make sense until Lee pointed it out. It's a grid, he said. They're planting pods underground in even rows. They're trying to terraform the land. Marla looked at the map, then at Lee. If we don't stop them now, the entire region could turn into an alien forest. Lee nodded. And with each pod, the pollen gets stronger and smarter. Marla called for a full scout team meeting. Volunteers arrived, men and women from town, farmers, shopkeepers, even teenagers who had lost their schools. Each wore a patch made from tissue paper, a strange symbol of pride now. Our mission is simple, Marla said. We need to destroy the pods, not just mark them, destroy them. How? One of the scouts asked. Lee's been working on a neutralizer, she replied. Lee stepped forward and showed a silver canister. It's made from a mix of earth, fungi, and old antifungal spray. It melts the spore shells, but it must be used up close. You spray directly on the pod. People looked at one another. It was risky, but they nodded. Before the scouts left, Marla pulled a small boy aside. Tommy, a clever kid who'd been building gadgets with scrap parts. Tommy, I need something loud, something that scares them. Can you do that? Sure, he smiled. You want noise, I'll give you thunder. As the team moved into the fields, the purple clouds swirled overhead. Each scout carried one canister. They spread out in pairs, stepping over wild grass and soft earth. When they reached the first pod, it pulsed with light, as if it knew they were coming. One scout aimed the canister and sprayed. The pod sizzled and cracked. Steam rose, and the purple color faded. It worked. Target down, he said into the radio. Soon more reports came in. 5 pods down, then 8, then 12. The team was making progress, but then the clouds shifted. From above, 2 alien drones descended, their long arms releasing new pollen waves. Marla heard the alert on her radio. Take cover, engage. Backup plan. That's when Tommy's invention lit up the sky. From the town hall roof, a giant speaker exploded with sound. It wasn't music or sirens. It was a mix of animal roars, car engines, and human laughter, all playing together in a strange rhythm. It echoed across the fields, confusing the drones. The drones paused mid-air, as if unsure what they were hearing. In that moment, the scouts moved fast. One team ran behind a drone and sprayed its engines with the neutralizer. Sparks flew. The drone crashed into a nearby pod, crushing it. Back in the library, Marla and Lee watched live drone footage. That boy just used noise as a weapon, Lee said with a smile. He might have just saved the mission, Marla replied as the battle continued. The alien ship above Earth began to shift its strategy. The commander watched as his drones failed and his pods were destroyed. He slammed his fist against the panel. They're not just resisting, they're learning, he growled. That aliens had underestimated humans. Again, on Earth, the scouts returned to base by evening. They were tired, covered in pollen dust, but smiling. They had destroyed nearly 20 pods. The mist in Westfield was thinner. People could breathe better again. Marla stood before the group. You've done more than defend this town. You've taken the fight to them. We're not running anymore. Now we push back. As the sun set, Lee brought new news. We've found something. He opened a file showing strange energy patterns. The central pod, the one controlling the others, it's not here. It's deeper, maybe hidden under the hills east of town. We need to go there next. Marla looked at the map. Then that's our next target. Tomorrow, we end this. But high above, the alien commander was already preparing his final move. This time, it wouldn't be just pollen. The next morning, the people of Westfield woke to silence. No pollen floated in the air. No clouds drifted in from the horizon. For the first time in weeks, the sky was clear. It felt like peace. But Marla didn't trust it. She stood outside the library, staring at the blue sky. This is too quiet, she said to Dr. Lee. They're planning something. Lee agreed. The central pod is still out there, and we haven't touched it. They gathered the scout team. The map Lee found showed energy signals coming from a group of hills east of town. It was a remote area, rocky, wild, and hard to reach by vehicle. They would have to go on foot. Before leaving, Tommy handed Marla a small round device. Just in case, he said. Press the red button if things get really bad. What does it do? She asked. You'll find out, he grinned. The team left at noon. They hiked for hours, moving carefully through thick trees and dry streams. The sun burned overhead, and birds chirped in the distance. Everything looked normal. But as they reached the edge of the hills, the air changed. Lee pulled out a small scanner. It's here. I'm getting strong readings. And something else. Not just pollen. Energy pulses, like a heartbeat underground. They moved closer. In a hidden valley between 2 hills. They found it. The central pod. It was huge, taller than a house, and covered in thick, moving vines. It pulsed slowly, glowing with purple and green lights. The ground around it was cracked and blackened. Above it, strange machines floated, humming gently. This is the source, Marla whispered. Suddenly, a voice echoed in their radios. You should not be here. The voice was not human. It was deep and cold, like metal scraping on stone. The team froze. Leave now, or be reshaped. The voice warned again. Marla stepped forward. We won't leave, this is our planet. We won't let you turn it into a pollen farm. The pod pulsed faster, the air thickened, the floating machines began spinning. Clouds of dark pollen started to rise. Lee shouted, "Spray it now." The team rushed forward, pulling out the neutralizer canisters. They sprayed the vines, the base, the cracks in the pod's shell. Steam hissed. The pod shook. The vines snapped like dry branches. But then, the ground trembled. From behind the hills, 3 massive alien drones appeared. They were bigger than any before, each shaped like a giant beetle, with long legs and glowing eyes. "Fall back," Marla shouted. "Regroup behind the rocks." The team scattered, dodging blasts of pollen gas and sharp sparks from the drones. One drone fired a mist that made people lose balance. Another slammed its legs into the earth, knocking everyone down. Marla reached into her belt and pulled out Tommy's device. She pressed the red button. Nothing happened. "Tommy," she muttered, "please don't tell me this is just a prank." And then, the sky exploded with sound. A huge speaker drone appeared above the valley, flying fast and loud. It blasted the same mix of strange noises: roaring tigers, human laughter, crying babies, honking car horns. The alien drones paused, confused. They twitched. Their glowing eyes blinked. One of them froze in place, shaking slightly. Now Marla shouted, "Lee, hit the core again." Lee and 2 scouts rushed forward and sprayed the central pod. Cracks appeared. The shell melted. A thick purple liquid leaked out. The floating machines fell from the air like broken toys. The central pod groaned. "Don't." It collapsed. A blast of energy swept through the valley, knocking down the alien drones and clearing the pollen in an instant. Everything went quiet again. Marla sat on the ground, breathing hard. "Is it over?" One scout asked. Lee checked his scanner. "The signals are gone. All of them. I think we did it." They walked slowly back to Westfield, tired but smiling. When they arrived, people ran out to meet them, cheering, hugging, and handing out fresh boxes of tissues as gifts of thanks. That night, Marla stood on the library roof again. She looked at the stars. "We stopped the attack," she said softly. "But why did they choose pollen? What were they trying to prove?" Lee joined her, holding a report from Space Command. "We might have answers soon," he said. Earth's satellites picked up a strange signal from the alien ship before the battle ended. "They're retreating, but not running. They said something strange." "What did they say?" Marla asked. Lee read the words slowly. "Phase 1, failed. Phase 2, wait and observe. Humans unpredictable." Marla smiled. They got that right. Days passed, and Westfield began to heal. The skies stayed clear. People no longer wore masks or ran from invisible clouds. Kids returned to school. Stores reopened, and life slowly started to feel normal again. But Marla couldn't relax. She stood outside the town hall, watching a supply truck unload more boxes of tissues. They had become a symbol now, not just for sneezes, but for survival. Every box reminded people that they fought something strange, and one. Dr. Lee walked up with new updates. "I ran more scans last night," he said. "The air is clean. No more pollen traces. But there's something else." Marla raised an eyebrow. "What is it now?" Lee handed her a tablet. "These signals aren't coming from the ground, air coming from orbit." The screen showed a soft blinking dot just above Earth's atmosphere. The alien ship hadn't left. It was still watching. "They're observing us," Marla said. "Waiting to see what we do." "Exactly." Lee nodded. "They think we'll go back to normal, forget what happened, but I don't think they understand humans." At that moment, Mayor Clark joined them. "The council wants you both in the meeting room. We have visitors." Inside, the small meeting hall was full. Reporters, military officers, and scientists from other cities had arrived. They'd heard what Westfield did, how they stopped the central pod and stood against the alien. Drones. Marla spoke first. "We didn't win because of weapons," she said. "We won because we adapted, because people worked together, and yes, because we had tissues." The room chuckled lightly, but they knew she was right. One officer stood up. "We want your help, Captain. Other towns are still recovering. Some cities still have underground pods we haven't found yet. We need your team." Marla nodded. "We'll help. Westfield isn't just a target anymore. It's a model." That evening, the scouts gathered again. This time, their mission was different. They weren't just defending, they were teaching. Groups were sent out to nearby areas with neutralizer kits, scanners, and maps. Tommy stayed behind, working on new devices. If they come back, I'll be ready, he said proudly. But meanwhile, Dr. Lee worked with scientists around the world. They built better air sensors and planted smart towers that could detect even the smallest pollen particles. But in space, the alien ship had changed. Inside, the commander stood in silence, watching the latest human activity. The screen showed people working, sharing tools, laughing, and even making jokes about the invasion. They are not like the others, the commander whispered. One advisor approached. Should we try again, a stronger method? The commander shook his head. No, more strength will only bring more resistance. We must understand them. For the first time, the aliens sent a message not to threaten, but to ask. It was simple. Why do you resist so well? The message appeared on every screen in Westfield, from phones to traffic lights. People gathered outside, confused. Marla stood up and answered with a short video. She looked straight into the camera. We resist because we care for each other, because we protect what we love, because we are human, and because no one wins a war with pollen. She ended the message with a smile and a wave and a box of tissues in her hand. The message was broadcast across the world. People laughed. They clapped, and then something surprising happened. The alien ship lowered a small pod into the center of Westfield. People backed away, unsure if it was dangerous. But when it opened, it released no gas, no pollen, a clear container with a glowing plant inside. A gift. Lee studied the plant and found it had healing properties. It could clean air, repair damaged lungs, and grow fast in human soil. The aliens had sent peace. A letter came with the gift, written in broken English. We misunderstood. You are not weak, you are strange, but strong. Thank you for showing us. From that day, the war was over. Earth leaders started talking with the alien species through safe channels. Westfield became the first human-alien learning center, where people studied alien plants and shared Earth biology. And Marla, she finally returned to her quiet life. Her barn stayed open, her hoverbike parked nearby, but she always kept her suit, her scanner, and a fresh box of tissues close just in case. You never know, she told Lee with a grin. The next time they come, it might be dust bunnies. Lee laughed. Whatever it is, we'll be ready. Months passed since the strange gift from the aliens arrived. Life in Westfield had changed. But not just because of the peace. It changed because people learned something new about themselves, and about their place in the galaxy. Marla walked through the town square, now filled with alien plants growing beside Earth, flowers. The glowing plant the aliens sent was called Lumisprout. It cleaned the air and helped people breathe easier. Children played nearby, chasing butterflies that seemed brighter than before. Dr. Lee joined Marla, holding a tablet filled with new data. The Lumisprout isn't just a plant, he said. It's a bridge. A bridge? Marla asked. Yes, Lee explained. It shows how humans and aliens can work together, their biology and ours, combined. This could be the start of a new era, Marla smiled. Who would have thought? A war started with pollen, and now we're growing peace from it. Far above Earth, the alien ship had become a research station. Aliens studied human technology, culture, and biology. They sent ambassadors to Earth, visiting places like Westfield and sharing stories. One alien, named Kale, became a friend to Marla. He was curious about Earth's ways, especially about human kindness and humor. They often talked about the strange war and how it ended. Your people are strong, Kale said one afternoon, not because of weapons, but because of heart. Marla laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. Westfield became famous as the place where humans stood against an alien war, and won not by fighting harder, but by adapting smarter. Cities around the world started planting Lumisprouts. Hospitals used their healing powers. Schools taught alien languages and customs. But not all was easy. Some people still feared the aliens. Rumors spread about hidden enemies or secret plans. Marla worked hard to calm these fears. She organized meetings, invited aliens to town events, and showed everyone that peace was real. Fear is natural, she told a group of worried parents, but it cannot stop us from moving forward. One day, Marla received a message from the Global Council. They wanted her to speak at the United Planets Summit, a gathering of many alien species and Earth leaders. They want to hear your story. The message said, how humans turned war into friendship. The day of the summit arrived. Marla stood before a huge crowd in a shining hall filled with beings of all shapes and colors. She looked out at faces from stars far away. When the aliens first attacked us with pollen bombs, she began, we were scared, but we didn't give up. We used what we had: tissues, science, and most of all, teamwork. She told the story of Westfield's fight, the scouts' bravery, and the gift of the Loomis. She spoke about understanding, hope, and the power of kindness. When she finished, the crowd stood and applauded. Some wiped tears, others smiled with hope. Kale stood beside her, proud. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. Back on Earth, life continued peacefully. Marla often visited the fields where the pollen clouds once floated. She remembered the sneezes, the panic, and the strange war that changed everything. One evening, as the sun set, she looked at the stars and whispered, "Thank you for teaching us that even the smallest things can be the strongest." And somewhere, in space, the alien commander watched Earth's blue glow and thought the same. Years had passed since the strange war with pollen bombs. Westfield had grown from a small farming town into a center of peace and learning. Aliens and humans lived side by side, sharing ideas, foods, and stories. The glowing lumisprout plants bloomed everywhere, reminding everyone how far they had come. Marla stood at the edge of a field filled with golden flowers. She held a small box of tissues, the symbol of a fight that once seemed strange but now felt like a lesson in hope. Children ran past her, laughing and chasing light beams. Some wore clothes with alien patterns. Others played games they had learned from visitors from far planets. It was a new world, a better one. Dr. Lee joined her. "The summit was a success," he said. "Many species want to build more bridges, share more knowledge, grow stronger together." Marla smiled. "It's amazing how a war started with sneezes and tissues ended with friendship and growth." Kale, the alien ambassador, arrived quietly. "Humans are not just survivors," he said. "They are teachers. They show us that even the smallest things, like a box of tissues or a kind word, can change the course of history." Marla looked at him and laughed softly. "And who would have thought we'd win a war by sneezing?" They all laughed together. But peace was not just about laughter or gifts, it was about understanding. Marla remembered the hardest moments, the panic, the confusion, the fear. Those moments had taught her and her people to be strong in new ways. One day, Marla received a letter from the alien commander, the one who had started the pollen war. He wrote not as an enemy, but as a friend. "We judged humans too quickly," the letter said. "We thought strength was only in weapons and power. But you showed us strength in heart and unity. We are sorry for the pain caused, and we thank you for the lessons learned." Marla shared the letter with the town. People cheered. Even the children held tissue boxes high like trophies. Westfield became a symbol, a place where two very different species found common ground. Scientists worked side by side. Artists painted stories of friendship. Farmers grew alien seeds beside Earth plants. And everywhere, tissues were no longer just for sneezing but for wiping away old fears. Marla stood once more on the hill overlooking the town. She thought of the journey, the strange war that had tested them, the battles fought with canisters and noise, and the peace won with understanding. "We didn't just survive," she whispered. "We changed the galaxy." And somewhere far away, the alien commander looked at the stars and smiled, because in a universe full of war, they had found something rarer and stronger, friendship born from the softest things.